Okay guys, I was working on this car that sat for nearly 40 years. I was asked if I can get it back going. So as I was awaiting parts at this part of me putting everything back together, I decided to get the fuel to come out the fuel tank because someone had installed an electric fuel pump on this thing probably many years ago. The mechanical fuel pump looked like it hadn't ran or worked in forever. So I wanted to get the fuel coming out the tank through the lines to work the way it should work. And as I was doing that, the gas hand read like it was no gas in the vehicle. So I decided to pour a couple gallons of gas in here and a little gas treatment just to, if it is any old gas, to help with the residue or the old gas in there when it comes to the line. So I poured a couple gallons of gas in here, 2 gallons to be exact, because that plays a part into what you guys will see me pull out this tank. And lo and behold, I never thought the gas tank was completely filled up. So you guys are going to see me remove the line and see gas starting to come out the fuel sending unit because the tank was completely filled with gas that most likely sat in there for 40 years since this car hadn't ran in nearly 40 years. And you guys are going to see what I have to endure to get this tank cleaned out. So here I set up a mock fuel tank with the electric fuel pump to pour some of that fuel that I just poured in the tank through the lines to see how it looks. And I wasn't getting anything, so I disconnected the line there. I disconnected the line from the sending unit, and it was completely clogged up. The line from the fuel sending unit all the way to the front where I got my electric fuel pump at was completely clogged up with varnish and gummy varnish and old fuel residue, completely clogged up. So I had to get that cleared out. And once I got that cleared out, you guys are going to see what started to come out the tank as I siphon 40-year-old gas out the tank. So this rubber hose I'm showing here that's coming from the sending unit to the main line, it was completely clogged, so I had to replace it to get something going. And once I replaced it, I was all good. Fuel was able to come through the main line itself into my makeshift fuel tank, and I'll show you guys that right now. So now I have fuel coming through the lines. You guys see the color of 40-year-old gas. Mind you, I only poured 2 gallons of fresh gas in this tank. When you all see how much gas I removed from this tank, you'll understand why I'm saying that. So let's finish siphoning out all the gas. I'll speed these clips up. Try not to make this video long. So here I'm showing I got about 8 gallons of gas siphoned out thus far. So here I'm showing I've ran out of containers at this point, just using one of my oil catch cans to help me catch some of this fuel that's still coming out. And you can see the fuel pump is different because the other fuel pump stopped working. It got clogged up. Even though it's a new fuel pump, electric fuel pump doesn't work anymore. So I'm using an older Mr. Gasket fuel pump. And eventually that one gives out just around the time when I get the remainder of the gas out. This is another clip, and yes, fuel is still coming out. At this point, guys, I did some research to see how much fuel this tank can hold because it's like it was never ending. But you can see here, it started to dissipate. And you guys will see what was left behind after all that fuel drained out of that tank. So now that I got most of the fuel out, it was time for me to remove the sending unit just to see the damage or how bad the inside of that tank was. And you probably will figure, why not remove the tank? You have to remove the entire ring, which would have been not an issue at all to remove this tank. So much has to come off, and I tried to avoid that, and which I did, but you guys are gonna see what was left in the bottom of that tank from 40-year-old gas. So here's the first sneak peek in this tank. You guys can see the float sitting back there as if it's stuck in quicksand. And what you're seeing is not like liquid fuel. What you're seeing is gummy varnish on the bottom of that tank, nearly 2 inches of it thick. And not only is the float back there broken off that sending unit, that inline tube with the filter on it is broken off back there as well. So remnants of that fuel sending unit is stuck in 2 inches thick of varnish, sludgy varnish. So here I'm using this flat scraper to stick down in the tank to see how thick this gummy varnish is and what I'm up against before I figure out the next step. And boy, was I surprised. Although I went in on a slight angle, I was still able to get a nice depth reading of about maybe 2 inches thick of this gummy varnish at the bottom of that tank. And I have to figure out what will work. This stuff is thicker than molasses. I mean, extremely thick and gummy. So I have to figure out what was going to help me out. So I started doing some testing. I'll show you all that in a second. So here's my first setup for the first sample. I labeled all the cups. And the goal here is to find some solution that will break that varnish down or turn it to a liquid or liquefied. That's the goal, to find something that will liquefy. My second sample was some denatured alcohol as well as some rubbing alcohol and some acetone. I even used my magnet as a sample when I stuck it inside that tank to remove the remainder of that sending unit. Here's another chemical. It's a fuel system cleaner, varnish remover. I used the first sample that I took that scraper with and placed it in there. Out of all the samples that I have taken thus far, this is by far the most effective one. And this is an edited version of this video because it was actually 25 minutes long. And my goal is to make it as short as possible. So I edited out a ton of clips, me showing all the different samples. I'll just tell you guys the top 3 or the ones that was most effective out of all 8 samples that I had taken thus far. The lacquer thinner coming in at number 1, followed by the acetone at number 2, and number 3 was the naphtha. All 3 of those in that order, but the most effective that worked instantly on contact, that liquefied that varnish, was the lacquer thinner. That's what we're going to go with. So let's go get some really quick, guys, opposed to me showing you all these different clips that I had in the previous video, and we'll get to clean this tank out. So here's me picking up some lacquer thinner. I bought a gallon of it. Should be ample enough to remove all the varnish from that tank. And as you guys can see, it's inexpensive, much cheaper than buying that Startron fuel tank cleaner, which costs in excess over 60 bucks. So yeah, grab a gallon here, more than enough. Let's go clear the tank out. So here, initially, I'm pouring nearly a quart just to see what kind of results I'll get. Mind you, I haven't put anything else in the tank, so we're just going to use the quart for right now, and then we're going to see what we get coming out of that tank. So I came back about an hour later and looked in there, and I could see it liquefying, but it didn't reach or spread across the entire tank, so I wound up pouring the majority of that gallon inside the tank. And here I'm showing you guys it was time for me to flush our water heater. I'll do it every 3 months, preventive maintenance. We have well water here where I'm at now, and it's very important that we try to flush this tank out 3 to 6 months a year, and I do it every 3 months. I know it's a little bit over exaggerated, but I do it every 3 months to keep our tank functioning correctly. It's an expensive tank, so gonna get some hot water directly from here. Perfect timing for me to flush this tank out and use hot water to flush the gas tank out. with that lacquer thinner inside the tank. So the hot water will also dilute the chemical as it comes out of that tank. So I'm looking forward to a lot of it spilling on the ground because I have a large enough pan to get under there and catch all of it. It's been about 30 minutes since the tank stopped dripping from some of that hot water. And as you can see, the varnish is completely dried up on the ground. I'll get that cleaned up in a second. I just stopped it here so you guys can see how thick it is. I'm going to use an old screw I had laying around to the side right there to remove some from off the ground so you guys can get an idea on what I was dealing with in that tank. And that lacquer thinner did an excellent job removing that stuff from the tank pretty quickly. I do want to note, I did leave it overnight because it was so thick in that tank. I wanted to make sure it dissolved every ounce of that stuff out, although it worked instantly or on contact. So I did leave it overnight. So here I'm running some more hot water through it, just clearing out all the excess. You can see it's coming out in chunks still. Although I got the majority of it out, you can still see how it's coming off in chunks. And now I'm going to vacuum the remainder up out of that bottom of that tank and show you guys what I'm up against now. After the initial vacuum, I attached the sprayer to the hot water hose and I just sprayed down inside of there. So in the next vacuum, I'll be able to get out all the particles that's at the bottom of that tank. And well, I thought I would. So you guys will see that in a second. After using the sprayer, this is the first view after I vacuumed again. This is the very first view inside the tank. And you guys are going to see. It looks much better than it did, but you guys are going to see what I'm up against to get this tank cleared out. It's disgusting. It's terrible looking. Still was in thought of my mind of removing the tank. But we're getting progress here. So here's a view of the third rinse with hot water and vacuum out with my throwaway vac. But I'm going to eventually use my powerful vac to get a lot of these large particles out. But yeah, this is the third rinse with hot water and vacuum with the vacuum. So we're just going to keep doing that and I'll show you guys how many times it took me to get it cleared out. So here's the fourth rinse with hot water and vacuum. We're still making progress. It's starting to look better and better. I believe at this point I'm getting some of those large particles out because I'm using my powerful vac now. Since that gas smell is completely gone, I can use my powerful vac now without worry about it having a scent or having an odor from old gas residue. So yeah, making progress. And I'll keep doing this and show you all how many times it took me to clear this tank clear completely out. Here's the fifth time, same routine, rinse with hot water, vacuum out those particles with my powerful vac at this point. Here's the sixth time, same thing, rinse with hot water, vacuum out. Here it looked like I took a couple steps back, but I was actually getting those particles moved around with the vacuum and with the hot water, just pushing forward with that sprayer to the front of that tank. So yeah, I'm making progress, I guess, here. Here's rinse and vacuum number 7, still rinsing with that hot water, and we're making progress. I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Here's number 8, same routine, much better progress, still going, light at the end of the tunnel. I'm getting close. We're at number 9, and as you all see, we're pretty much there, just about there, almost there. And I'm ecstatic at this point, so I know I'll be all good in a minute. I know I'll be able to run fuel through the tank without any issues, but still a little bit left to get out. So here's my final rinse, just with regular water, not hot water from the tank, just regular water from the outside spigot. And I'm going to do the final vacuum and show you guys what vacuum I'm using right now, and we'll be all good. Before I did the last vacuum, here I'm using a lint brush for a dryer lint brush, because it's flexible, it's got some lint to it, and that brush kind of helped me release the final few of that debris that's in the tank, at the bottom of the tank, those rust that formed inside of there. So this brush helped me get those all that debris from the side and the corners out once I did that vacuum, because I was able to get my vacuum on that small holes in there on the angle, but not all the way to the corner. But this helped me clear it completely out using this lint brush, dryer lint brush. Once again, here's my setup before the final vacuum. Made me an attachment to fit on that smaller hose, attach it to the larger hose to fit inside that tank, and it was perfect. So here's the results after the final vacuum. The tank is pretty much clear. It may seem like there's some residue in there, but it's not. It's just damp, and I'll show you all when I install the new sending unit. The gas that comes out on the initial startup of the vehicle, I'm going to show you guys how the gas look. But yeah, that's it. We got it. Now let's install the new sending unit. I was very surprised to see the initial gas coming through that line at the filter. I thought it would have some tint to it from the tank, but it was perfect. Crystal clear. Now we got clear fuel, and the fuel hand is working when it wasn't working before. So let's get this thing started, see how it runs.